Julie shouted at me as I packed my bags. OMG, you aren't seriously going with him. What kind of freak adopts a 16-year-old? He must be a psycho. I don't know, maybe the universe is finally smiling down on me. I couldn't tell if my best friend Julie was actually scared of the eccentric man waiting for me in a limo, or if she was just jealous I was getting adopted by a billionaire. I assured her I was just a phone call away and I was going to be okay. I was not prepared for the life ahead of me, though. I should have known there was something off about the man. See, just a week ago, I saw a disheveled old man crying in the park. All I did was ask him if he was okay, and he gave me a huge hug. I thought he was homeless, so I offered him a chocolate bar from my purse. He ate it so messily, I thought he hadn't eaten in days. He insisted he would make it up to me. I told him not to worry about it. The very next day at school, one of my classmates started shouting at us to look out the window. There was a huge banner. It said, "To the girl who gave some chocolate to the homeless-looking man in the park yesterday, please call this number as soon as possible." All of my classmates were asking questions. I was going to call the number myself after school, but my principal called me into the office a few minutes later. There, waiting in the chair, was the man from the day before. He wanted to thank me for everything and didn't know how else to find me. You could have tried Facebook. Sorry, I don't know how to use that. I don't know what I was thinking, but I agreed to let him take me out as a thank you for the chocolate bar. I agreed to meet him outside of the orphanage after school. For sure, I did not expect a limo to pick me up. Well, here we are a week later, and I'm driving to our mansion. It was bigger than I ever could have imagined. Mr. Conrad gave me a tour of the whole house. It was as eccentric as he was. There were a few indoor gardens, a shark tank, and my room had a tree in it. That was probably my most normal day at the mansion. One night, after I said I liked Dumbo, he showed up to dinner riding a small elephant. It broke about $2 million in fancy china and stained glass windows, but he kept saying it was worth it just to see me smile. He was trying so hard to make me happy. As soon as I moved into the mansion, I was moved to the fancy private school of my dreams. I was really nervous on my first day. Mr. Conrad saw that I'd hardly touched my breakfast. He leaned over and smiled. "Don't worry, everyone is going to love you." Turned out, the teachers were super nice, and the kids were really welcoming too. I was getting along just fine with everybody when suddenly, in the third class of the day, Mr. Conrad burst into the classroom with a big box. "The latest Apple Watches for everyone, from our sweet, sweet Dana." All the kids oohed and awed with excitement as he hopped around the class, handing everyone their watches. They looked really happy, but I was so embarrassed. I really didn't need his help to win everyone over. I really started enjoying going to school and everything was perfect, except for one other student, Amber. Amber was the heiress to some tech company. She was the richest girl in school until I got there. She was super annoying and threatened by the fact that I was richer than her. She was always making jokes about me being an orphan or not knowing about the latest fashion trends. This one time, I thought she was being nice and gave me a gift basket full of free jewelry and clothes. I was so confused why she was laughing. I thanked her for the gift, and she started pointing and laughing with tears in her eyes. Those are from last season. OMG. That night, I called Julie and told her about it. Julie and I thought Amber was the weirdest, meanest girl ever. I mean, the basket was worth more than $80,000. I could live with it. I found it all so stupid and funny and loved telling Julie about how the stupid rich girl was trying to get me today. Most of the time, it just involved giving me a bunch of free stuff that I gave to Julie later when I visited her at the orphanage. I told Julie today Amber told me, I bet she doesn't know a Gucci bag from a Coach purse, and handed me a bunch of free handbags. Mr. Conrad overheard me talking to Julie about my problems with Amber, and he immediately offered to help. I told him it was okay. I was doing fine with it all. I can buy her father's company. That'll show her. I told him I appreciated it, but I was used to doing things my way, and ruining her life because she made fun of my clothes seemed a little extreme. I told him that teenage girls can get catty. He gave me a really weird smile and said he heard me loud and clear. I probably should have asked what he meant. The next day at school, Amber came up to me in the courtyard and started making jokes about my shirt while I was talking to this guy Xander. All I did was ask, "What are you gonna do? Give me free clothes? That'll show me." Xander and I laughed, and Amber got very red in the face. Amber asked him why he was hanging out with a loser like me and how he could have a real girl like her. Before I could say a word to her, I heard something I'd never heard before in my entire life. Amber screamed and ran, and I dropped my book and fell over. Xander went running in the opposite direction. It was Mr. Conrad and a tiger. Everyone was staring at us with a mix of horror and confusion. He laughed and said, "Get it? Because girls are catty? Where did you even get that?" "Oh, I had a buddy fly her in from Hollywood. She's harmless. Look, I can ride her like a king." Then he said to the tiger, "Roar, babe, roar." And the tiger roared and rubbed his knee with her head. He looked so ridiculous, and everyone was laughing at him, except for me. I was a little upset he'd managed to scare Amber and Xander away. I guess that's how parents are supposed to be. Mr. Conrad did a lot for me, and it was going to take more than almost feeding my enemy to a tiger to get me to be mad at him. But when Julie visited, she didn't find it as funny as I did. Julie said, "He brought a live tiger to school, Dana. Are you even safe?" I told her that I was and everything was okay, but she kept pushing me. "Yeah, it's great and all that. You go to the Bahamas every month and have a private jet, but do you ever get to be a real teenager?" I told her to mind her own business, and it was super obvious that she was just jealous. Julie looked hurt and said, "Who are you?" Then she left before I could even apologize. I felt bad immediately. I'd never thought about it, but Julie was right. At my old school, I always had friends. I had plans every weekend and was constantly asked out on dates. At my new school, it seemed like everyone avoided me now. Mr. Conrad had made me an outcast, but I assured her he was just doing normal rich dad things. Deep down, I knew though, he took it to some incredible extremes. One night, I'd stayed up really late doing homework and went to school feeling like a zombie. I was really tired and my limo driver was late, so this guy from school offered to drop me home. Boy, I would have said no if I knew what was waiting for us at the gates. Mr. Conrad saw us and yelled, "Who are you? And what are you doing with my daughter?" He pulled a bunch of crazy-looking interrogation tools out of his briefcase. I managed to pry him away long enough to explain that I was just tired and a boy from class had offered me a ride home. He went from treating the boy like a criminal to treating me like a hospital patient. He whipped out a flashlight and asked me to follow his finger and if I was dizzy and if I thought someone had poisoned me. Without even waiting for a reply, he hopped in the boy's car and drove us all to the hospital. It was so embarrassing. I didn't think it was ever worth bringing a boy into my life again. That was until Xander. After that boy told the whole school how intense Mr. Conrad was, everyone avoided me like the plague, all except for Xander. He literally brought me a bouquet of flowers just in case it was more than a lack of sleep. How cute! I decided I wanted a boyfriend, and I wanted Xander to ask me out. I knew he was the one. I just needed to avoid Mr. Conrad finding out. Xander had seemed super interested in me before, but after the tiger incident, he got more distant, although I could feel he was still into me by the lovely looks he gave me and his warm smile. So I decided to make the first move. I really tried to drop some hints, like I was pretty embarrassing sometimes. Once I put on a bunch of makeup, walked up to him, and told him I was very available this weekend and had no plans at all. His response? "Me too. Hope you find something to do." Amber hopped over, hung all over him, and said, "Hey, Xander, look how desperate she is for a date with you." Thanks again to Amber's bad attitude, he immediately ran up to me. "You mean you really want to date?" Mr. Conrad made it seem like he was a little overprotective. I don't want to mess with a guy with a tiger. What? No, he wants me to date super badly. Well, only if your dad's okay with it. That's when I finally got asked out on a date, and Amber was fuming. I know I said Mr. Conrad was cool with it, but the guy brought a tiger to school because a girl gave me free clothes. I decided to keep Xander a secret, just for a bit, and only tell Mr. Conrad when the time was right. Until then, I told him I was visiting Julie for the night. He insisted on flying us out to France or letting us use his yacht, but I insisted we just wanted a fun, girls-only evening at the orphanage. I drove down to the city and met Xander at a comic convention. in. It was the easiest way for us to have fun while keeping my secret. We hit it off super well. He was a little weirded out that I made us wear costumes, but figured it was just a fun Comic-Con thing. Our date went so well that we decided to go on even more. We couldn't dress up in costumes every weekend, so I needed to find ways to be creative. Every time, I convinced Xander to go somewhere far away or in disguises, and every time, I told Mr. Conrad I was meeting Julie. I didn't want Mr. Conrad not to approve of Xander. At the same time, Xander was getting super suspicious. We always had our date in remote places, and I would never kiss him in public. The more serious we got, the harder it was to hide. Xander wanted to post pictures of us on social media and wanted to go to events together. I made excuses to avoid every real public appearance, and it all became more and more awkward. Even though we were official, I was even weird about us hanging out after school, just in case Mr. Conrad made a surprise visit. One time, he tried to run up and kiss me as Mr. Conrad dropped me off, and I instinctively spilled tea on his coat to distract him. Amber saw us and ran up to us laughing. Wow, some girlfriend you got there, Xander. I told her to shut up and go steal someone else's man. Amber got angry and pointed out how I was acting like Mr. Conrad didn't know we were dating. You just don't want to piss Daddy off, you spoiled baby. I swear I was about to punch her, but then Xander interrupted and said, "That's crazy because Mr. Conrad does know about us. Right, Dana?" I quickly changed the subject, but it was obvious it had gotten to Xander. The final straw came when I showed up to our date wearing a long trench coat, giant sunglasses, and a huge hat. I told Xander it was the latest fashion, but he stared at me with a hurt look. Are you embarrassed of me because my family is only millionaires?" I assured him it was all fine and told him I was just nervous about telling Mr. Conrad. He was perfect and I loved him just the way he was. He said with a broken voice, "Then why do you want to hide me?" I tried to explain how Mr. Conrad was a little sensitive and I wasn't sure how he would respond to everything. He told me that he wasn't some secret. He wanted to be a part of my life. I told him that I would slowly introduce him to the important people in my life. I decided to take us out on a double date to introduce him to my best friend. The next day, Mr. Conrad asked if I wanted to join him on a weekend trip, but I told him I couldn't. I told him I was seeing Julie again, which wasn't a total lie. I just left out the part that we were on a double date. He seemed hurt, but understanding. He said he felt like I was always going over there, and he hardly saw me anymore. He explained she was always welcome to come here, but I insisted that I liked visiting the old orphanage. "You really miss her, don't you?" He gave me a huge hug and told me to have fun. I kind of felt guilty leaving him and lying, but I would tell him about Xander soon enough. I called Julie and apologized for what I said. She forgave me and was happy I was enjoying a bit of a normal life with Xander. Julie was so excited about our double date. Julie, her boyfriend, Xander, and I met up at the train station. We went to a small cafe far away from the mansion. It was all going really well, and we decided to show Xander around the town I grew up in. Everything was going perfectly fine until we decided to take a walk in the park. Wow, is this like a special festival or something? There shouldn't be. There were crowds of people on the street. It was like someone was throwing a parade. There were fireworks, singers, and to top it all off, a giant float with a picture of me and Julie that said, "Best Sisters Forever." On the top of that float was Mr. Conrad. I tried to cover my face, but it was too late. Mr. Conrad hopped off the boat and ran over to us cheerfully. He looked genuinely surprised to see me with a boy, and his face dropped when he realized Julie and I weren't alone. "I thought this was girls' evening." I explained I was too nervous to tell him I had a date, and I didn't mean to lie. He started crying and ran off. I felt horrible. As good as my date with Xander was going, I needed to take care of this. I insisted that everything was okay and I would call them all in the morning. "Sorry, Xander, it's just family problems." Xander said it was fine and that I should fix things with Mr. Conrad first. I ran to apologize to Mr. Conrad, but he kept trying to get me to go back to Xander and said I didn't need to apologize. "But I lied to you, and now you're crying." "It's not you, it's me. If I don't need to apologize, then what's the problem?" He explained he was just so happy to see me pursuing love and happiness. He said he was too busy working and never had kids, and by the time he realized he wanted them, he was too old. He explained that he didn't want to die alone, and the world smiled on him when I came into his life. He wanted to give me everything he had and more. "Why did you come here anyway?" "I figured you missed Julie so much, it made sense to adopt her too. My offer still stands if you want." That week, our mansion got a little more crowded. We had a party, and Mr. Conrad brought 2 golden statues of me and Julie hugging each other and put them on our outdoor water fountain. Julie and I loved living in the mansion. Mr. Conrad got us into some crazy adventures, but it was always fun together. Xander and Julie's boyfriend even joined us in some of our antics. I don't think Mr. Conrad will ever worry about dying alone again. I don't think the mansion is ever empty. Mansion is ever empty. Hi, my name is May, and I live in Florida. My parents were both lawyers, so they were mostly away for work, and that left me alone with my little sister June. June was a little different from other kids because she didn't have an arm below her left elbow, but I never let her feel any less about herself because of that. Growing up, I made sure she was loved to bits, especially with my parents being away often. I took care of everything, from feeding her, bathing her, to taking her out for rides. But then once when she was 4, Mom took us to the shopping mall. While Mom was in the changing room, another woman with a little kid came there, and the kid started screaming when he saw June. "Freak! She's a freak! She's so scary, Mommy! She's gonna eat me just like she ate her arm." OMG, this kid was frickin' crazy. I immediately tried to hush him so June wasn't scared, but then his mom went all bonkers on me. "How dare you lay a hand on him, you crazy girl! My baby is all scared." That made me so mad. "That's enough, you ugly lady. There's nothing wrong with my sister, and you people should be the ones to leave because you're morons." Mom rushed us out of there before I made a bigger scene, but June always looked sad after that incident, and that's when I had an idea. I asked Mom and Dad to get a prosthetic arm for June, and they agreed. "Oh, wow! This is so cool! Now I look just like you, May!" She hugged me tight, and I was the happiest to see her smile. Soon after, she joined her new school, but on the very first day, she came out crying when we went to pick her up. "June, what's wrong? What happened?" The other kids, they laughed at my arm and made fun of me. I don't want to go back, ever." "It's okay. You can come with me to my school. We have a section for younger kids there. You'll be fine. I'll be there with you." Later, when we reached home, June said she didn't want anyone at the new school to know about her arm, so she was going to wear full-sleeved clothes and gloves all the time. "But June, there's nothing wrong with you." "May, please, just keep this a secret. Promise you will?" And of course, I agreed. A few days later, when she joined my school, she looked quite happy after blending in with the kids just fine. And I made sure to check up on her once in a while. Grades passed by, and then one day, as I was watching her from the window outside her class, I suddenly lost my balance and tripped, but someone caught me just in time. It was my senior, Matt. He was known in school for being a math genius. Thanks. I would have fallen so hard if it wasn't for you. I wouldn't have let that happen. I'm Matt, and you don't look like a kid, so what are you doing in the junior section?" "Oh, I was just keeping an eye on my little sister. I'm May from 10th grade, by the way." "Okay, May from 10th grade. Do you want to grab some lunch?" Whoa, that was sudden, but sure. We had lunch together, and I had a really great time talking with him. I was looking forward to it again. But the next day, a senior girl showed up instead of Matt and splashed a full cup of coffee in my face. "You witch. This is your last warning. Stay away from my boyfriend or else." "Are you crazy? And who's your boyfriend anyway?" "Oh, don't act so innocent now. I know you're trying to steal Matt away, but I won't let that happen on my watch." "Well, you're crazy to think that. We just had lunch once. I don't even know him that well." "Oh, and you had lunch with him without knowing him, you witchy gold digger." Oh my God, she was a psycho. Before I could even reply, she jumped onto me. We both broke into a wild fight and ended up in a pile of food on the food counter. And we ended up in detention. But the very next day, I found June crying in the playground as Jessie and her friends were dumping all the things from her bag into the garbage bin. She was getting back at me by bullying my sister now? I marched up to her furiously and pulled her hair, and she turned around and attacked me. Luckily, the principal walked by just then, and when she found out what Jessie was doing, she suspended her for 3 weeks. When Matt heard about this, he came running to me and explained everything. "I'm so sorry about Jessie, May. We broke up months ago, but she just won't accept it." I was just really happy to hear he wasn't dating that witch. I really enjoyed Matt's company, and he sure enjoyed mine. I even went to watch all his quiz competitions, and once after he won, he came running to me.
May from 10th grade, I really like you. Will you be my girlfriend?
OMG! Everyone stood there in shock, and I gasped as I said, "Yes, of course, Matt." He picked me up in his arms, and we kissed like no one was watching. It felt like I was on cloud 9. I was so excited that I went straight to June to tell her. But just as we reached there, I saw June push someone to the ground. "June, what are you doing?" As soon as she saw me, she came running to me. "Oh, May, those mean girls were pushing me around, so I just pushed them back. You told me to be strong, right? Did I do something wrong?" "Oh, no, June. You stood up for yourself. I'm proud of you. But they're saying they'll report me to the principal. Am I in trouble?" "Oh, no, you're not. You just wait right here." I went straight to the kids and screamed, "If any of you says anything to my sister, I'm gonna toss you like juggling balls in the air. Got it?" The kids nodded in horror, and June and I high-fived as we left. And then I told her about Matt, and she had the best reaction. After that, Matt and I started hanging out together all the time. On my 15th birthday, Matt decided to throw me a huge party at his house. And I had so much fun there. We danced till our feet hurt. But by the time I reached home, it was pretty late. I saw June sleeping on the couch, and there was a cake on the table and balloons all over the walls. Then I gently woke her up. "Hey, sweetie, I'm so sorry it got so late." "May, you're back." And then she looked at the clock, all sad. "It's 12:45. Your birthday is over. Where were you? We always celebrated together." And she furiously walked away from me. I felt so terrible. I totally forgot she must be waiting to surprise me. So I decided to make it up to her. I planned a theme park trip for the 3 of us, and June was super excited about it. When we reached there, the first thing she wanted was ice cream, but the stall was really crowded. "Matt, just stay with her for a while I go get us some ice cream, okay?" He held her hand tight and nodded, but when I returned, I was shocked to see that June was lost and Matt was looking for her. "Matt, how could you be so careless? I told you."
She was right here holding my hand, and then she just slipped through. I don't know how.
"Forget it. Just help me look for her now." We looked for her for hours, and with each passing minute, I was getting crazy anxious. Then 3 hours later, I received a call on my phone, and it was June. She was calling from some phone booth. When we got there, we saw June covered in mud and crying like crazy. "Oh, May." "Oh my God, June, what happened? Who?" "After you left, some woman pulled me away. I called out to Matt so loud, but he didn't even notice. I don't know where she was taking me, but I escaped from the car when she stopped for fuel. I'm so scared, May. Please take me home." I turned to Matt. "I should have never trusted you with my sister. What was I even thinking?" Matt tried to explain, but I just took June's hand and stormed out of there. When we got home, I got June all cleaned up and even slept with her to make her feel safe. The next day, when we went to school, June asked me to forgive Matt, first thing. "It wasn't his fault, you know. Let's look for him and make things up." June was right. Maybe I overreacted. We looked for him around the school, but then I found him kissing Jessie in the backyard. "Matt, you cheater! How could you?" His face turned white as a ghost.
"May, I can explain. This isn't what it looks like."
"Oh, it's exactly what it looks like." "Just shut up. And Matt, we're done. I don't ever want to see your face again." He tried to run after me, but the witch Jessie stopped him, and honestly, I didn't care. June hugged me while I cried my heart out. "What a jerk. He doesn't deserve you, May. It's okay. I'm here for you. I'll always be here for you. Please don't cry." The next few days were hard for me, but June tried her best to make me smile and even brought me hot chocolate in bed. She was the sweetest. But at school, Matt was trying to follow me again. So I just went into the girls' room and locked myself in a stall to escape. As I waited there, I suddenly heard familiar voices. June and Jessie? "Are you crazy? Why did you talk to me in front of everyone? May could have seen us." I wanted to thank you, but I'm also really curious. Why did you help me? May's your sister, after all. "That's none of your business. You got what you wanted. Now just get lost and don't talk to me again." And she just stormed out. I couldn't believe my ears. My own sister helped my boyfriend get back with his ex? But why? As I slammed the door open, Jessie looked shocked. You witch! You used my innocent sister to get my boyfriend? I pulled her by her collar, but she just pushed me aside and cackled like a witch. Innocent? It was your sister's idea. Go on, ask her. Like I'd believe her. But I had to ask June what was going on. I followed June around the hallway, and what I found shook me. I saw her snatch another kid's lunch and push her to the ground. You dumbo. No lunch for you until you complete my homework. Oh, God. Who was this girl? What are you doing, June? You pretended to be bullied in front of me, but you were the bully this entire time? No, wait, I can explain. I even heard you talking to Jessie in the bathroom. I heard everything. What's wrong with you? As I turned away from her, she held my hand and tried to stop me, but I just shook it away from her. As I did, her prosthetic arm detached and fell to the ground. Everyone around us gasped and started whispering, "Oh my God, look at her hand." Wow, the big bully is actually a big weirdo. Oh my God. I stepped forward to help June, but she just picked up her arm and ran away crying. I wanted to follow her, but I was also so furious. When I reached home and my anger calmed down, I went to check on her, but she wouldn't open the door. Ugh, she was so stubborn. The next day at school, I heard kids whispering about June, calling her a cyborg and a robot. OMG, I had to find June. I knew she wouldn't be taking it well. I looked for her in the classroom, but she wasn't there. And then, as I was passing by the gym, I heard her shout. I looked in to see Jessie and some of June's classmates tossing her prosthetic arm around and laughing. Just wanted to check if the rumors were true. You are a freak. Give that back before I kill you. I'd like to see you try. Before I could jump at her, someone held me back. It was Matt, and standing next to him was the gym teacher looking furious. He screamed at Jessie and the kids that he'd get them expelled and marched them straight to the principal's office. June, are you okay? Oh, May, Matt, thank you for saving me. And I'm sorry, you guys, for everything. I'm sorry, too. It was because of me that the kids knew about your arm. But June, why did you bully them in the first place? Because I was scared. After I was bullied at my previous school, I didn't want to be hurt again. So I had to be the bully, like the cool kids. But June, that's wrong. These kids aren't even cool. They're evil. Look what they did to you. Also, you turned against me and Matt too. Why? Because you were replacing me with Matt. So I just wanted to get rid of him. At the theme park, he didn't let go of me. I ran away, and I asked Jessie to kiss him. I just wanted you to break up with him and love me. Oh, June, of course I love you. You're my little sister. Nobody can ever replace you. But I love Matt too, and you have to understand that. I do now, and I'm sorry for everything. Please forgive me. Suddenly, Matt looked at me, and we hugged her together. We forgive you.